8 real-life prototypes for Titanic characters. 1. Captain Edward Smith, played by Bernard Hill. Smith was the captain of RMS Titanic. Before that, he commanded many White Star Line ships. Smith was 62 when he became the Titanic's captain. Rumors had it he was planning to retire after the maiden voyage. After the collision, Smith helped passengers into the lifeboats. He himself perished, and his body was never recovered. 2. Margaret Molly Brown, played by Kathy Bates. Margaret was dubbed the unsinkable Molly Brown. She was a famous socialite and philanthropist. Brown was returning to the U.S. after traveling in Europe. She tried to save as many passengers as she could. After being rescued, she organized a survivors committee. She passed away in 1932, aged 65. 3 and 4. Isidore and Ida Strauss, played by Lou Poulter and Elsa Raven. Isidore Strauss was a co-owner of Macy's. He and his wife Ida were returning from a holiday in France. After the collision, Isidore urged Ida to get into a lifeboat, but she refused to leave him behind. Ida gave her maid her fur coat and her place in the boat. The couple linked arms and went down with the ship. Isidore was 67 and Ida was 63. 5. Joseph Bruce Ismay, played by Jonathan Hyde. Ismay was the chairman and manager of the White Star Line. He accompanied the Titanic on her maiden voyage. After the collision, Ismay was one of the first to board a lifeboat. He turned away from the disaster, unable to watch. Ismay was the highest-ranking White Star official to survive. As such, he became the target of harsh criticism. He passed away in 1937, aged 74. 6. Charles H. Lightoller, played by Jonathan Phillips. Lightoller was the second officer on board the Titanic. He commanded the last bridge watch before the collision. During the evacuation, he took charge of lowering the lifeboats. He made sure women and children made it. Lightoller even threatened some men with a revolver. He told them to get out of the lifeboat and let women take their place. Lightoller was the most senior crew member to survive the sinking. He went on to serve in both World Wars, becoming a hero at Dunkirk. Commander Lightoller passed away in 1952, aged 78. 7. Archibald Gracie IV, played by Bernard Fox. Gracie was an amateur historian and soldier. On the night of the disaster, he never lost his calm. He assisted Lightoller in evacuating women and children. Gracie remained on deck until the ship sank. He then found an overturned lifeboat and clung onto it. He managed to survive and write a book about his ordeal, called The Truth About the Titanic. It's still in print today. Sadly, he suffered hypothermia and severe injuries. He passed away less than 8 months after the disaster. 8. John Jacob Astor IV, played by Eric Braeden. Astor was a business magnate and writer. He and his wife were the wealthiest passengers aboard the Titanic. They were accompanied by 3 servants and a dog. His wife Madeline was pregnant. Madeline, her maid, and her nurse survived in a lifeboat. John Jacob stayed behind, turned away by Lightoller. The 47-year-old went down with the ship.